Alright, so today we're going to talk about perspective. For some reason, a lot of my students, they always have troubles with perspective. And I think it really boils down to more of a mindset thing. Perspective is really not that hard. For today's purposes, we're only going to cover 1 point and 2 point perspective. Okay, so 1 point perspective is the idea of like looking down a hallway and everything is facing like directly towards you. Like there is a straight flat surface in front of you. And in this case, everything would be put, against the wall or parked parallel on the street if you're doing cars or something like that. So with 1 point perspective, you have to think of it this way. Your vertical lines and your horizontal lines are facing directly towards you. So think of 1 point as like in your face. Okay? And then with that idea, anything that you have that goes back in space, so you can see here, anything on this side or this side or this side or this side, anything that goes back in space goes to that vanishing point. Okay? So think of it this way. X, Y, and Z. Z is your back in space. Okay? So here is an example of doing 1 point perspective. Alright, so in 1 point perspective, everything that we draw is basically on a horizon line. And the horizon line is nothing more than simply a line across the canvas. That is where our eyesight goes. If we're drawing 1 point perspective, you're going to get just a vanishing point. That vanishing point means that everything you draw goes back to that section. So in 1 point, we simply draw a box, and that means that our box, no matter what, goes back in space. So in this case, we are going to use kind of a quick line here. So you can see here that all of this stuff goes back into space, like so. All right. So with that in mind, the back side of that ends the box. So again, you can see here and here ends that box. And that gives us where kind of this box lines up and kind of is created. Now that is our simple kind of how we do that simple perspective. That's 1 point perspective. And again, remember your X and your Y are always there, but your Z goes back in space. Now, if we want to draw something over this, in this case, I would draw another box, like so. That box still floats in that 3D space. But as I get closer to the center of the vanishing point here, that basically means that I lose some of that visual aspect on the side. So again, drawing this and this, that gives me kind of my aspect, and I can get that overlapping function here by drawing back in space. Now I can go through and I can clean up my lines like so, and cleaning up my lines like that. So I can go through and clean up my lines and get that backwards element like so. Alright, so you can basically go through and kind of build up your line work accordingly. Okay, and so that's this 1 point perspective. Okay, that wasn't that hard. Now 2 point perspective, whereas 1 point everything is facing you, 2 point is turned to the angle. The only thing you're seeing that's vertical is the corners. Alright, and so the issue is that, think of it this way. Alright, if you have a vertical line and then you have 2 vanishing points off to the sides, anything to the left goes to the left, anything right goes to the right. So this vertical line is your kind of stationary point. So that anything you do, anything to the left goes to the left, anything to the right goes to the right. So with 1 point, you have anything that goes back in space goes to the vanishing point, and with 2 point, anything that goes to the left goes to the left, anything goes to the right goes to the right. And so you have to understand that that kind of idea is really all that you need to understand. From there, you can draw anything you want. All right, now 2 point perspective is the same thing. 2 point perspective is I have my horizon line, but everything I draw from here is based on the corner of this line. So if I'm going and I've got my 2 vanishing points, so I've got my first vanishing point and I've got my second vanishing point. And just so you know that if the vanishing points are closer together, you're going to get a lot more kind of warp and distortion. So if I have a corner here, that basically means that everything I draw from that corner goes from left to left, like so, and it goes from right to right. All right? So now those vanishing points right there basically create the corners of my object. And then I just put a terminator in here to end. So the only thing that works in this is the y. Okay? The x goes back here, and the z goes back in space this way. And so, again, very simple. All that I'm going to do is keep my verticals here, and that's my corners. So if I'm going to draw something in the back here, so say I draw a smaller box. I want something back here, and I'm just going to draw a hidden dotted line box here. And again, left to left, right to right. So everything here is going to go to left, and I'm going to basically create a terminator, and so there we go. So I can just erase that out, and there is my box behind it. Alright? And that's ultimately the whole rule set to perspective. Now, if you are going to do something back in space, and you want to give the idea that is something is in front of it, that's when overlapping helps. So if I look at my hand and I look at this block, I don't know what's back, what's forward. But if I overlap back in space, that gives the viewer the option to say, okay, this is in front of this. And that is ultimately what you're trying to do. Okay, so when you're doing any type of 2D or 3D or 2-point perspective, anytime you overlap something, bam, you already have distance. Okay, and that's why you look at a lot of landscapes, they don't have a flat plane going back in space. They have hills, overlapping hills, and that shows depth. So that'll reinforce your 2D space is simple overlapping. Okay? Now, if you want to measure something back in space, I'm going to show you a quick, simple way to do it, as well as the 2-point perspective. Now, if you want to draw something in perspective as equidistant, so say you are going to draw a series of windows, or you're going to basically draw something that, like a fence, that's set equal apart. Okay? The easiest way to do this, and here's a little logic. So, if I draw a box, it doesn't matter if the box is perfect or whatever. If I draw a box, and that box, I need to find that center, the easiest way to find that center is to draw an X. By drawing an X, I get the center point. That means I also get the center points of the edges as well. Now, with the center points in mind here, I know that if I want to continue this box over, I can just draw an X like so, and basically extend this box like so. So that horizon line keeps going across, creates a new center point, and again, draw an X, and if I go a little bit faster, I get a straighter line here. Draw an X, and so on and so forth. Now that works in 3D space as well. So if I've got a vanishing point here, and I'm drawing that like so, and there's my vanishing point, and I draw a box like this, I need to basically create an X. Let me try that again. So there's my X, and then from that vanishing point, bam, there's my center point for my new one here, and then I just basically draw from corner to corner up. Because that center point, I can keep continuing that, and it'll get smaller and smaller and smaller. All right, so you can see that the 2-point perspective is really easy. It's just simply remembering the couple little rules. If it's for 1 point, if it's going back in space, that goes to your vanishing point. And then on 2 point, if it goes left to the left, it goes right to the right. But just remember, 2 point has corners. That's how you're looking at something. You're not looking at something straight ahead. You're looking at something on the corner. And that doesn't mean that you can't have a 2-point perspective and then put a 1 point in the center and work off of that. That is completely a viable solution too. So you can overlap these two. All right, if that helped you out, let me know. And if you guys have any comments or something like that, or questions, let me know in the question section. And then we'll go from there. All right, take it easy, guys.